Obviously, the topic of today's program is dealing with unreasonable people, but we kind of have to start at the beginning. How do these people become unreasonable? Well, their research indicates that if you strip away the layers of the onion, if you strip away the layers of unreasonable behavior, at the core of every unreasonable behavior is some sort of core belief. Core belief. Now, these core beliefs are called schema. And so we're going to spend the first part of the morning, actually, looking at core schema that any of us could develop over time. And the research indicates that there are 16 problematic schema that we can learn. And here's the really interesting thing. Core schema are in place. They're in place by early adolescence. And they're going to have a profound impact on how we see ourselves, how we see the world, and how we interact with the world for the rest of our lives. So, for example, if you develop a core schema that I am more special than anybody else, and I always deserve special treatment, how might you behave? You tell me. You're going to come across as extremely critical, extremely demanding. In other words, this is really the origin of narcissistic personality disorder. You're going to be extremely imperious, demanding. You're going to be extremely difficult to get along. And when you don't get your way, you're probably going to have some sort of a tantrum. You're going to engage in all kinds of inappropriate behavior because you feel you're not getting your due. Well, those kinds of beliefs, in this case a core belief regarding entitlement, they're in place by adolescence. By adolescence. And they're extremely compelling. So we're going to take a look at those beliefs and how they develop. That's the first objective. I think you'll find that section fascinating. Second objective. Well, we know that just about anybody can develop core beliefs that are problematic. In fact, there's not a person in this room who doesn't have at least a handful of problematic core beliefs that you operate by and that have a profound influence not only on how you think, but on how you feel and how you behave. But we know from very good research that there are certain forms of mental illness that go hand in hand with core beliefs. In other words, people who are mentally ill, particularly people who have mental illness that involves emotional dysregulation, they tend to have an inordinate number of core beliefs. And we think that this contributes to their mental illness. In some cases, it may even cause aspects of their mental illness, and it certainly contributes to their problematic behavior, the type of problematic behavior that all of us as healthcare providers deal with on a daily basis. So I'm going to give you an overview of psychiatric disorders that involve emotional dysregulation. And oh joy, oh rapture, this overview is going to be based on brand new diagnostic data, notably from the new Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, the ICD-10, and other diagnostic manuals. So you're going to be leaving here at the end of the day very hip-hop and happening about all of the latest research on these disorders, what they are, what they look like, and what the recommended treatment protocol is for them. In fact, you'll probably know more than you really want to know, but that's just the way it's going to be. So that's the next objective. Next objective, okay, now that we've identified these core beliefs, now that we understand how they play out in mental illness, what in the heck do we do to help these people without an ensuing homicide investigation? Well, this leads to what I think you'll find to be the most interesting part of the day. Research indicates that there are 6 primary pathways to reach people. No matter how difficult the individual might be, there are certain general strategies, we call them pathways, that will dramatically enhance your ability to work with even the most difficult of people. Example, I say this to the people that I supervise as therapists all the time, and I'll say it to all of you. When in doubt, lead with empathy. When in doubt, lead with empathy. What does that mean? It means see if you can figure out what this person is feeling, and sometimes they make it easy for us to figure that out because they're yelling and screaming, for example, and reflect it back to them. I can see that you're very, very upset, and I want you to know that I'm very interested in hearing about that. You'd be amazed at how calming that can be to a person who's extremely labile, extremely out of control with their emotions. That's just one example of a pathway. We'll talk about 5 others that I think you'll find helpful, things to keep in mind when working with difficult people. Then we're going to get even more specific. The last objective is to talk about a specific model that was developed by a physician. His name is Dr. Back, B-A-C-K. And a number of years ago, he developed a model for having difficult conversations with patients. Now, he's an oncologist, and he developed this model to assist him and his colleagues in sitting down with patients and telling them, you're terminal. You have inoperable cancer. There's really nothing we can do for you other than palliative care. Now, would you all agree that's kind of a difficult conversation to have with somebody? Now, fortunately, most of us don't have to have those kinds of conversations with our clients and our patients every day, but we certainly have challenging conversations that we have to have from time to time. What I've done is I've made minor modifications in this model, and I'll share it with you this afternoon, and I think you'll find it helpful with a broad range of difficult conversations that you might need to have with a patient or a client. And I know we have educators here today. This would also work with you in dealing with a difficult student or dealing with troublesome parents of a difficult student, okay?